Xtouch 23 here, and today we have some high value knives in 14C 28N worth checking out. The first one is the Miguron Akri. I reviewed this one a while back on the channel. This is the one that was in DC 53 steel with the flat ground blade. I liked it a lot. It was a comfortable knife, nice crown spine on them. It had beautiful action, nice and drop shut action, nice and snappy, but it left a little bit to be desired, because I wanted something that was in a stainless and something that sliced a little bit better. The flat ground versions were like 25 thousandths behind the edge, and it wasn't the best slicer. And they answered both of my problems with the newest of the Akri, or however you say it. They added a hollow grind to it, and it's in 14C 28N steel. Excellent steel, and I was hoping they did a great job with it. Right away, I could tell it was slicing much better than the flat ground version, and that's because it's ground to 18 thousandths behind the edge, and it came with a really good edge out of box. It performed nicely, and I found that the 14C performed a lot better than the DC 53, in my opinion, at least on the stuff that I did with mine. It's nice drop point blade. It's going to be good at just pretty much anything. It's a nice longer blade to it, while still being pretty compact in the closed position, the way it sits completely into the handle. Definitely a great knife. These come in at $48, and how good this knife performed at $48, I think it's a no-brainer. This one is a front flipper, and I only have really two cons with the knife. My particular knife has a little bit strong of a detent, not terrible, and it's breaking in by the day, so it's getting better. They did a good job with putting some fine cut jimping there, so it's easier to get a grip on it. And I'm not sure if they fixed this or not, but it seems like they made the lock bar access a little bit better, even though it's still pretty much flush with the show side scale. I can get to this one a little bit easier than I can on the original. For a quick size comparison, we have the Ontario Rat Model 1 and Rat Model 2. It's much more similar to the Rat Model 1. The only other con that I could see is they still only have it for tip-up right-hand carry only. Now, they did give you a milled titanium pocket clip with it, but I think they missed out by not having it left-handed carry. So can I recommend the Akri? Yes, I definitely can. $48, I think that's a no-brainer. Next up, we have another Miguron knife, and this is the Miguron Moyarl. I don't know how to say it. I'll put the name on the screen. This one comes in at $48, and I got to say right now that this is my favorite Miguron budgeted knife that they produce so far. It's got a beautiful drop point blade with a high slicer type grind, flat grind on here that comes down fairly thin behind the edge. I measured this one at around 17 thousandths behind the edge, and it came with a beautifully sharp edge as well. It doesn't have any jimping up top, but I had no reason for it. I was nice and locked in, and I found that the forward finger choil that goes up onto the blade helps you get a nice grip on the knife, and you can get right up on that edge for doing detail work, and you got a lot of control getting right up on it as well. The knife performed really well on pretty much everything I cut. It made short work of everything, and being that it's a drop point, it's going to be able to do just about anything, and it's going to do it pretty darn well. When I got to the wood carving, I did notice that, you know, the handle scales do feel a little blocky because they're just blocky G10, they're flat G10. However, they did do a good job of softening the edges around the G10, so it was rather comfortable. You know, they fill out the hand nicely, and you know, it wouldn't probably be a problem unless you did a bunch of, like, say, hard wood cutting with it. But other than that, I had no issues with it. The Peel Plot G10 has enough grip to it to where I didn't feel like I was going to slide off of it or anything. And this is a very fidgety knife with a beautiful drop shut action. That thumb hole is excellent for doing the reverse flick if that's something you like. You can also do the thumb flick easily, and you can nicely slow roll it. This has a beautiful action, and like I said, ergo's pretty darn good. This one comes in at $48, and I definitely think that's a great deal. This one, they did tap it for tip up left or right hand carry, and you're getting that 3D milled titanium pocket clip. This one is anodized blue. Size comparison between the Rat Model 1 and 2. It's in the middle of those two. I really only had one con with the knife, and that is how much of the knife sticks out of the pocket. But it's really not the worst thing in the world, especially at the price point, and you're getting that mill titanium pocket clip, so there's a trade-off there. You can get this in different variations. This one's just the blacked out version. You can get it with the coated R9 coated blades. Good access to the lock bar. Overall, excellent value knife right here. One that I can highly recommend. Next up, we have the Trivisa Dor. Comes with this very bulky spear point blade. It has a nice stonewash finish, and it's ground decently thin at around 18 thousandths behind the edge. However, it is a sharp flat grind, so it's going to thicken up rather quickly after the first few sharpenings. This one probably came with the best edge out of box. It came ridiculously sharp. And being that you have that needle point right there, it's going to be great for piercing and for doing drag cuts. It's going to be like a little scalpel up there in the tip. The knife performed excellent on just about everything I did with it. When I got to the sisal rope cutting with this knife, I saw right away that it had a very aggressive edge to it and made 45 cuts without a problem. I definitely could have done more with it, and it actually kind of surprised me on how well it was cutting. And once I finished up with that rope, whenever I got to the wood to test out the ergos, found it was fairly comfortable in hand because you have nice and contoured micarta scales on it. The micarta is nice and grippy, so I felt locked in, and I was able to get a lot of power behind the cuts. The knife had pretty much no hot spots no matter which grip I held it. Nice and comfortable, and that's a big plus for me. This knife also has one of the best actions out of box. Just watch this. In most button locks, whenever you press the button, once it's on the button, it's usually creating a little bit of friction on the button from that pressure on it. But this one, when you release that button, let's see if I can show you this. Look at that. Nice and drop shut. I don't know how they do it. I'm guessing it's the way the button, the actual plunge lock is actually kind of concaved in there like that. It's nice and smooth. I had no problems with this one disengaging, even though it does have a pretty small plunger in there. It flips out nice and fast, and, you know, like I said, that is a beautiful action. Quick size comparison between the Rat Model 1 and 2. It's more similar to the Rat Model 1. Now, I do have 3 cons with this knife. One, if it starts to widen back here, it's going to be very hard to fix it because in the closed position, that's where it's stopping on the stop pin, so you really can't expand it unless you just come in front of it. So that's kind of a bummer. And the next thing is the price tag. This one's the most expensive of the bunch at 70 bucks. I think that is a little pricey compared to the rest of the knives on this list. And lastly, for me, the flipper tab isn't the most comfortable. It's already a minimal flipper tab, and where that jimp is sitting, it's, you know, not the worst in the world, but it's not as comfortable as the next knife on this list. Now you do get a tip up left or right-handed deep carry pocket clip that works pretty well. You got a good bit of space for thicker pants, and you do have countersunk screws and countersunk pocket clips, so they did a great job on that. Overall, I like the knife. If you're okay with the price tag, I can recommend it because it just did such a good job, you know, for a budget knife. Last one's a new brand for me. I don't, maybe say Xtouch brand. I thought this knife looked interesting in the pictures, and I'm kind of glad I checked it out. They don't have a name per se. This is the SX603. Come on now, give us a name. It makes it a lot easier to remember the knife and helps the reviewers out to talk about the knife, because I'm not going to keep saying that XX603. It's just kind of dumb. Nice drop point blade here that has a high flat grind that comes down fairly thin behind the edge. It's nice and it's ground down to 16 thousandths behind the edge. You have some jimping up here that, you know, gives you moderate traction if you like that. And this blade is going to be good at just about everything. It did great in pretty much all my testing. Came with a very, very sharp edge, and this thing cut like a machine. Everything I put in front of it, it handled it without a problem. And this one was probably the funnest one to test out of the bunch. It felt good in hand. That blade was easy to, maneuver around certain things. And it was very sharp the entire time. It held the edge probably the best out of the bunch. And we'll probably test those edges at the end depending on how long this video is. They do give you a sharpening tool on this one that does clear that plunge by a little bit. However, if you do need to widen it up, you can, because they did it right. The stop pin is up here, so it's not going to affect where you put it. The action on this knife is pretty darn good, nice and smooth, nice and drop shut on this one. Thumb studs are okay. They're not the most comfortable thumb studs in the world. They're just pretty generic thumb studs, but the flipper tab works nicely. Now, it comes out nice and smooth, but when I took this one apart because I wanted to see, how this one was working. Being that it is a button lock, they used a very small coil spring, and it's a cone shaped. They put grease inside the spring, something you don't really see that often, but it does a good job of holding the spring. So when you take it apart, it doesn't want to fall out left or right. Definitely think they could have used a little bit stronger of a spring, because it's decent action. It comes out fast because it's on bearings, but it's not the snappiest action. It's just boop. I could have probably made some adjustments to the spring, but I want to show how it came out of box. But overall, I do like the knife. They have pretty smooth G10 scales on here, which weren't a problem. They're nice and wide, so it fills out the hand nicely. You do have a guard with that flipper tab, so I didn't feel like I was going to run up on the blade at any point during any of my testing. The flipper tab's pretty comfortable. And like I said, the thumb studs are just okay. They do sit pretty close to the frame on this side, so for the reverse flick, you can do it. It's just not the easiest. Thumb flick's a lot easier, even though, it's still pretty close to that. I just catch the bottom of that thumb stud. Not the most comfortable, like I said. Now, this one is tip up right hand carry only, and they did not recess the pocket clip screws, something I wish they would have done. And the other con to this knife is that the blade is a bead blasted finish, which I just don't like. It causes, it can be a cause for concern with corrosion, and I just think it's a cheap looking finish. And for our quick size comparison, we got the Ontario Rat Model 1 and 2. It's right in the middle of those. So overall, I like the knife. It's a $56 knife. I think they did some things very well. The blade performed really well. It's got very smooth action. Like I said, I think the spring could have been a little bit stronger on this one. But overall, I could recommend the knife. 56 bucks. I think you're getting your money's worth here. And I'll definitely be checking out, more of their knives. All right, let's check the edge out after all the cutting I did. Yeah, really good. Probably right underneath the Trivisa. Let's check that edge out after all that cutting. Wow. That's probably the best of the bunch. Let's check that edge out after all the cutting I did with it. Yeah, really good edge still. Let's check out that edge. Yeah, still good. And if you're interested in any of these, I will have links down in the description. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.